So what's up guys, Jonathan here, and on the left we have the Galaxy Note 5 and on the right the iPhone 6s Plus. As far as design goes, the Note 5 follows in the footsteps of the Galaxy S6 and ditches the plastic for an all-glass back. The design of the 6s Plus, on the other hand, hasn't really changed much from the 6 Plus. It's slightly thicker, heavier, and of course now comes in rose gold.
You mean pink, right?
Okay, pink. Now the main reason the 6s Plus is heavier is because of its 3D touch display, which in turn makes it noticeably heavier than the Note 5 by more than 20 grams. Not only is the Note 5 smaller and lighter than the 6s Plus, it also manages to squeeze in more screen size and resolution. The Note 5 comes in at 5.7 inches with a 1440p AMOLED display, whereas the 6s Plus is 5.5 inches with a 1080p IPS display. Now, by no means is the iPhone 6s Plus display a bad display or a reason not to pick up the phone, but when stacked up head-to-head against the Note 5, there is no comparison. The Note 5 is better in every possible way. Now, when it comes to performance, if we were solely looking at specs, one might think the Note 5 would crush the 6s Plus. It has an 8-core Exynos processor and 4 gigs of memory, whereas the 6s Plus is still dual-core with 2 gigabytes of RAM. Surprisingly though, the A9 is clocked like a mother and performs extremely well. In Geekbench, on the single-core side of things, the 6s Plus dished out a score of 2529 compared to 1493 on the Note 5. As far as multi-core performance goes though, the Note 5 is too much for the 6s Plus with a score of 5144 versus 4372. Jumping over to graphics, in GFX Bench, the 6s Plus dished out 38 frames per second compared to 15 on the Note 5. Now yes, I know the Note 5 is pushing way more pixels than the iPhone 6s Plus, but if we run the test off screen at the exact same resolution, the iPhone 6s Plus is still faster. So what that means at the end of the day is you're going to get better multi-core performance out of the Note 5, but the iPhone 6s Plus is still really fast and overall a better gaming experience. Again, yes, there are more pixels on the Note 5, but as far as games that are actually optimized to take advantage of the display, there are many more on the iPhone 6s Plus. Now following that, because these are big phones, because they're workhorses, one of the things you guys were most interested in was battery life. Inside the Note 5, we have a 3000 milliamp hour battery, whereas the 6s Plus is 2750. Now again, this is a prime example where if we were looking just at specs, you would assume that the Note 5 is better, but it's actually the opposite, and the iPhone 6s Plus is much better as far as battery life goes. Now the Note 5 does have quick charging and wireless charging if that matters to you, but overall in terms of battery life and if you needed to get through the day, I would go with the 6s Plus. Now following that, I think the biggest two features that separates each phone from the other is the S Pen on the Note 5 and 3D Touch on the 6s Plus. Now the instant you whip your S Pen out, even while the screen is off, you're given the ability to take a quick note which can then be saved as a regular note for later on. Then from there you have Air Command, which essentially is the central hub for S Pen functionality. There's Action Memo, which lets you take down a note, but from there take it a step further so you can link it to an action, pin it to your home screen, or even use it as a reminder. Smart Select lets you screenshot a specific portion of your screen, which in turn can be saved as an image or added to a scrapbook. Screen Write is a screenshot on steroids where you can not only capture your entire screen, but you can also write on it. S Note is where you can write down basic notes, and then of course you have the ability to add shortcuts to the apps you might use most frequently. Now on top of all that functionality, there are still basic tasks where the S Pen is really useful, something as simple as just signing a document through email. Now as far as 3D Touch goes on the iPhone 6s Plus, let me preface by saying you are not long pressing the screen, you are physically pushing it, and in turn it's reacting and giving you a right-click like action. So with email, for an example, you could press to get a preview or press even deeper to fully open it. This also applies to apps on your home screen. So you could 3D touch the clock to set a timer, bring up various camera options like taking a selfie, recording video, recording slow motion video, or just straight up take a picture. Where I found it really useful though was web browsing, where you could preview a link really easily, and even something like Instagram where you could quickly preview a profile without actually opening it. Now initially I was really skeptical of 3D Touch, but the more I use it, the more I find myself enjoying it. They're also really similar in the sense that right now S Pen and 3D Touch are really just limited to the core apps, but I think where 3D Touch has the advantage is over time, those will eventually roll out to third-party applications. Following that, let's go ahead and talk about fingerprint sensors, and this part of the video is pretty short and sweet. The fingerprint sensor on the Note 5 is really good, but Touch ID on the 6s Plus blows it out of the water. It's kind of weird, but there's been complaints that Touch ID on the 6s and 6s Plus is too fast. Before, where you might use your thumb just to wake your phone to check notifications, that doesn't happen anymore. You literally press it and it unlocks the phone. Now again, not saying the fingerprint sensor on the Note 5 is bad by any means. The 6s Plus is just next level. Finally, let's go ahead and round this video up with cameras. The Note 5 has a 16 megapixel rear shooter and a 5 megapixel front shooter, whereas the iPhone 6s Plus is rocking a 12 megapixel rear shooter and 5 megapixels on the front. Now, like most camera comparisons go, yes, megapixels aren't everything, but as far as which camera I would recommend to the average user, it would be the Note 5. And before you freak out, this is why. With Samsung phones, they auto add sharpening and they also jack up the saturation, which is instantly pleasing to the eye. So in turn, you're more than likely going to get an image you're happy with on the Note 5 compared to the iPhone 6s Plus. Where the 6s Plus takes the cake though is in dynamic range and preserving the naturalness of the image. So if that matters to you and you enjoy tweaking the photo in post, then I would probably recommend the 6s Plus. As far as the front-facing camera goes, again, I think most people will enjoy the Note 5 over the 6s Plus. You have a wider lens on the Note 5, which in turn means you can get more people in the frame. What I found really useful on the 6s Plus though was what Apple calls Retina Flash. It sounds silly, but it actually does a pretty decent job of getting exposure where there's not a whole lot of light. As far as video goes, both do shoot in 4K, and much like the photos, the Note 5 is generally sharper and more saturated than the iPhone 6s Plus. But as far as dynamic range, overall quality, and more importantly, image stabilization, the iPhone 6s definitely takes the cake. So all in all, both are tremendous options when it comes to the giants of the smartphone game. With the Note 5, you're getting arguably the best display and camera on a smartphone, but the battery life is a little bit disappointing. If you're all about that productivity, the S Pen makes the Note 5 a fantastic option, but if you don't mind sacrificing a little display quality in turn for better battery life, I think the iPhone 6s Plus is a better option as a whole for most people. So aside from that, that pretty much wraps up the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did and you are feeling like being awesome, make sure to go MKBHD versus Austin Evans on that like button. Let me know if you guys are team iPhone 6s Plus or team Galaxy Note 5. This is Jonathan with TLD, and I'll catch you guys later.